Hey everybody, Coach here. So glad you could join me here this afternoon. Man, we went from spring to summer back here in the Appalachians in little as 3 days. We went from cool 65 degrees to now a sultry 92 today. Hey, I'm glad you could join me. Special thanks out to my Yard Coach crew out there on the newsletter every single week. Thanks for some of the feedback. Hey, this particular week we are talking about a subject that many folks don't think about. You know, if you think about a lot of the successes in human history, you think about personal success, professional, corporate, military success over the decades and eons. There is a particular common thread in this subject, and I am going to tie it in to landscaping very quickly, but stay with me. You will find out not only a few of the great successes in our world that we're kind of familiar with, but also the reasons why. So I'm glad you're here, so let's get rolling. Hey, I'm Matt, and you can call me Coach. You know, every Friday I bring DIY landscape instruction, landscape design concepts and theories, tips and tricks that allow you to tackle landscape projects yourself, get the professional results that you want, and save a boatload of money in the process. You know, after 20 years of being in this business, both designing and contracting, building and selling, I bring with me a lot of knowledge and experience that I want to share with you. The new, modern, educated, self-reliant homeowner of today. Okay, I'm going to go through a few of them, so stay with me here. Guarantee you, towards the end, you'll see the tie-in very well, okay? So what do you think when you hear these names and these corporations? Now I know I'm being kind of United States oriented, but that is where I am, so let's get with it. How about George Washington? How about Henry Ford? Tony Robbins? Jeff Bezos? Sam Walton? Here's one that'll probably throw you. How about Baldwin, Bowker, and Siegel? How about Steve Jobs? That's probably not too hard a one, huh? And finally, Ray Kroc. All right, so what all these people have in common? Highly successful men that have taken an idea and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar global influencer in modern history. You know, if you look at Jeff Bezos with Amazon, you look at Ray Kroc with McDonald's, you look at any of these men and what they're attached to. Say like Henry Ford. Henry Ford had a really complicated idea that he started in his garage. Same with Jeff Bezos. They both started out small. Check out Steve Jobs online, and that's where he and Wozniacki started. Wozniacki. Is that the right name? I'm not sure. Starts with a W. Sounds Polish. I'll have to check it out. Anyway, what do these guys have in common? And what do they have in common with your landscape? Hey, let's get into it. Well, I will tell you about their success. In my ever so humble opinion, is because they had something that many of us don't have on a large scale. They're not surrounded by a fantastic, brilliant, intelligent, driven supporting cast. Would you agree with me there? I mean, do you think George could have crossed the Potomac there on that very frigid sub-zero night by himself? How about Ray Kroc? Do you think Ray Kroc as a single person could have ever created McDonald's? How about Jeff Bezos, a guy who started in his garage with an idea that he blossomed into what it is today? He could not have done it without a great supporting cast of people. Okay, Coach, let's get this dialed into landscaping, shall we? I don't have all goddamn day. All right, here we go. If you don't believe me that a supporting cast is very important in your little microcosm of the world, your little slice of heaven there in the front and backyard, here's an example. How about those down in Southern California? Hey, SoCal, how you doing? Let's just say you turn off the water to the landscape for 1 month, just 1 month, 1 month, and let's see how that landscape looks. Now, I'm not talking about people who are out there in the Lancaster area and Palmdale and Palm Springs area of SoCal. I'm talking about the average residential patio, lawn, shrubs and trees landscape, not your desert environment, okay? No cheaters out there. How about this? Maybe you live in one of the rainier areas of our country or our world, and you have nothing in place for water management. And when I say water management, you don't have a way to get water from your roof and from your yard, get it off the property so that you don't have a threat to your dwelling or anything other valuable on your property. Let's say you've gone large or gone home. Now you just put down 20,000 square feet of hydro seed or sod lawn, and it's knitted in really well. And maybe you live in an area that waters it all by itself from Mother Nature, from the heavens. But you're going to take on 20,000 square feet of sod on a mowing application with that old beat up piece of crap, 15-year-old, 21-inch walk-behind mower that your parents gave you as a housewarming gift 13 years ago. And now you're applying it to this. You know something? In the landscape world, our supporting cast of characters play a vital role in having the yard that you want to show off, that you're proud of in your little slice of heaven, and that the neighborhood recognizes and notices on a regular basis. Take that supporting cast and have something that is not functional or non-existent, and you leave things to your own devices. And many times in this busy lives that we lead today, when you have something that is left to your own device and you're pumping out 40 to 60 hours a week and you're relying on you to do all the watering, you to do all the mowing, you to worry about the drainage situation, you to worry about the machinery and tools that are supposed to go with it. I have seen in my own experience many times people end up with a very, very declining type of landscape. They end up moving into a landscape where the previous owner has done a great job and put the house on the market in tip-top condition, but it's lacking a few things. And that supporting cast, not taken care of properly, is what we're talking about here today. The following supporting cast members that I want to go over are very, very obvious to some, but not all. Okay, and you take these away and you can see how a nice landscape can turn out to be that yard down the street. That yard that used to be, when the Smiths were there, was a fantastic, well-manicured, pride of the neighborhood type of yard. Then the Joneses moved in, and the Joneses just flat didn't have the time or choose not to keep up on the supporting landscape elements and landscape cast members that keep things running well. And there you go. Within a year or so, it's that house down the street. Devalued, kind of an eyesore of the area, got a truck or a car or two parked on the front lawn, and you can see how things kind of go downhill rather rapidly. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about some of these supporting cast members that if you take any one of these away, you could seriously have problems in your landscape. Right off the top, you can think about irrigation. Now, some of you lucky people, some, not all, but some of you lucky people get enough rainfall throughout the year where you're not having to worry about irrigation. Although down here in the south right now, I have already seen in the last 2 weeks very little precipitation. And because the soils that surround me are very, very thin, I've already noticed browning in people's lawns and yards as I've been traveling around towns and down interstates with a browning type of landscape. So sometimes, you know, your irrigation, you have to go out at least twice a year and check those irrigation heads that you have. Make sure that your string trimmer hasn't hit them, a mower hasn't hit the head. You don't have, you know, the old Roman fountain coming out of the sprinkler head at 4 o'clock in the morning when you have it scheduled to water. Check your valves and make sure you have no winterization problems coming into this now warm season. You know, everything is solid. There's no leaks and no drips. The wiring as well. No little chewy critters have gotten in there and chewed on wires and made sure that your electrical connections are for crap now. And then check your timer. Check your timer and make sure that you've set it from late fall or whenever the last time you paid attention to it, and now you have it set for the late spring and summer months so that it gets the right amount of water at the right time of day and the right number of days every single week. Also, along a conservation line, you know, nowadays those timers, they have a wonderful, easy connection that you can put on them called a rain sensor. So you're not that neighbor down the street that when the heavens have opened up on a thunderstorm in the middle of August, you don't have your sprinklers going at 10 a.m. like you normally do. The heavens are watering it for you. That rain sensor that you've put up next to the gutter on the side of the house has sensed that and turned the system off. And generally it will turn it off for a minimum of 2 days if it senses more than 1/10 of an inch of rain. That's an easy water conservation. And for you guys out there in the Southwest and the West Coast, especially my old state of California, get one of those things. They're very inexpensive and they can really save on vital water resources. Now, another supporting cast member, probably in the top 3 in my landscape importance, and that is the opposite end of the spectrum. Instead of putting water on the landscape, now we're going to talk about getting excessive, unwanted water off of the landscape. Number 1, do you actually have a drainage system installed? I have read hundreds, if not low thousands, of people asking questions, how do I get rid of this water? And many people, like last week's video, I'll put a link in right here, regarding native landscapes and all that kind of stuff. You know something? You don't always have control over how much water gets dumped on your landscape. And in many, many cases, you have to have a system in place, one that is well maintained at least 2 times a year, if not 3. And you have to have it in place that it can accommodate your amount of rainfall that you get every year. If you have a place that gets 40 to 50 inches of rain every year, and yet you got a small 3-inch system, it probably is going to get overwhelmed at times, especially with gutter wash, etc. Those gutters have to be maintained. The system has to be flushed out. You have to be able to keep it in a good working order so that when the heavens do open up, you have that gravity drain system in place. Your French drain system, if there is one, it flows correctly. It was installed correctly. And if you live in a really flat area, or you have a place where you can't discharge your water off your property safely, and you have to get it up to the street so it can be discharged, a good working sump pump system is mandatory. This is how we take water that's standing 1 inch, 2 inches deep, and all of a sudden you've got that house that has cleared all its standing water in less than a day, if not in less than a few hours. So, a good 2 horsepower pump, a good 2-inch discharge, either a permanent discharge pipe in the form of PVC or a good flexible PVC hose that you can roll up and disconnect at a moment's notice or install at a moment's notice when you know that rain is on the way. Drainage systems are paramount to good landscape management, so we don't have flooding where you don't need it, we don't have washouts where it's not required at all, and your dwelling, your patio, your fire pit, all those areas that you've spent thousands of dollars on are in good working order shortly after a big rain burst. Okay, another supporting cast. This time, many people don't think of this whatsoever. How about the supporting cast members of your tools? And when I speak of tools, I speak of everything in the garden shed. You know, you can have a shovel or you can have a shovel. And a shovel is something that is a really basic garden tool, but many people don't do a damn thing to them. They never clean them off. They never get rid of the rust. They let the wood handles go to crap. They never sharpen the edges, so you're having to work twice as hard to do the same amount of work. Same thing with your pruning tools. At least once a year, if not twice a year, depending on how much you use them, should be sharpened, should be lubricated, should be stored and placed in a nice dry area that is not rust prone whatsoever. How about the mower? Remember we talked about the mower earlier? Mowers are a machine, just like the vehicle you take out of your driveway every day. It needs to have a new spark plug at least once a year. It needs to have the oil changed twice a year. And if you got that 20,000 square foot of sod area that you have to mow, I would suggest oil changes 3 times a year minimum. At least every 100 hours at a minimum. That way, when you need those tools, you need the tools to call upon for a new project or a maintenance project, it is ready to go. Geez, did you see the Jones's house down the street? My God, that lighting system they have is the most fabulous front yard in the entire neighborhood now that they have it in there. You want to know why? It's because it was installed correctly. It is probably maintained correctly by looking at the bulbs, turning them on at dusk, and going out and making sure that everything is working. They take the time to go and change the mechanical timer on the transformer so that it is coming on at dark and it's not having to burn all the way till dawn. Maybe it goes till 1 or 2 in the morning at the most. Or you have a photocell receptor. So it comes on and then you can program it to stay on for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, or 12 hours, and then it automatically goes off. Go into that transformer and make sure there's no spideys up inside the workings of that. All of that is Webstered out, and keep that nice and clean. All your wiring is buried correctly and you're using the right connectors. You know, sometimes we get into gophers and voles and other little squirrel critters I've seen that can actually chew through wires. And suddenly that light that's out there by the lawn next to the walkway is no longer working and you wonder why. And you go out there and you see that the wiring has been chewed through. Also, mice and rats like to chew on the plastic covering and often can short out a system. All of this requires maybe 5 minutes a month to go out and turn it on and inspect it and make sure it's in good working order. That way your lighting system continues to shine like the Joneses down the street. Also, don't forget, if you're in a windy, dusty, or humid environment, make sure that your photocell is always cleaned at least 2 to 3 times a year. It's amazing how much debris, dust, algae, and other things can build up on that photocell. And it takes less than a second with a paper towel to go and clean and ready to go for another 6 months or more. Let's talk about the other little chemical supporting cast that's in our arsenal, and that is fertilization. You know, you can spend $20,000 on a new landscape, and whether you did it yourself or you had somebody do it, I'm sure that there was fertilizers and other things that went into that investment. However, after 6, 12, or 18 months, a lot of that fertilization has been used up by plants and decomposed through natural processes. It is really good to have a schedule. I would suggest 4 times a year. Just like my 4-1-2 on lawn care, which I'll put right here, make sure that you're feeding and keeping food into that top organic layer. And then during watering processes, it leaches into your root systems and gives that plant a good start, not only in late winter and early spring, going into the heat of the summer, coming out of the heat of the summer and cooling down when it generally always has like a new little flush of growth, and then going into the harshness of winter. So generally 4 times a year is a great thing. If you have containerized material, I would suggest once a month. Whether it be dry or liquid, once a month generally works out well, especially if you're watering every day or every other day. Also, make sure you're using the right fertilizer for the right plants. You know, you could find something on sale at a box store or on sale at the grocery store out in the front door area, but it's probably not the right fertilizer for all your plants. You may have some acid-loving plants back on the north side in the backyard. Your lawn doesn't require acid loving, so it may need a turf fertilizer. So you may have 3 fertilizers in your arsenal. Make sure you customize them to the plants that you're feeding on a 4 times a year basis. All right, another supporting cast is maybe some of our luxurious elements. Maybe you don't have them, but a lot of people do, and that's water features. Water features are something that cannot be just installed and forgotten. They do require some maintenance, and the first 60 days are generally the most important. You know, you get that certain chemical balance in order between, say, a waterfall with a nice pond area. You got to get that pond balanced out, and we generally do that through a combination of filtration, living, breathing animals like fish and frogs and snails and other things, and plant material. If you just have a naked stone water feature, try balancing it out. You won't fight that green algae, the green string algae that goes along with the warmer months. Also, make sure you check your pumps at least 2 times a year. At least the end of winter when you're firing everything up, or in the middle of summer before string algae season, you disconnect that thing, wash it out really good, and make sure the flow is correct. Many of the standalone water features that I installed, I always instructed folks to check it at least once a month. Now, they generally had like a 45-inch square basin underneath these standalone water features. And when I put those things in, I always instructed them to at least check the water levels, at least, unless we put in an auto fill, always check it at least once a month. And in some of the hotter areas of the Central Valley of Northern California, people were having to put water in there at least once a week. I know the one I had out in front of the Sunset Deck at Weed Patch Ranch got water about once a week. And then about every 3 months, I would go in there with a sump pump and I would really rinse that basin out, because we were in kind of an agricultural area and it got a lot of dust and debris blown into it. So I would pump all that out, refill it with good, clean well water, put a little bit of algicide in it, scrub the feature itself with all its algae that would collect, put it back together, and man, it looked like it was brand new. But if you just let it be and you don't do anything to it, it's like a car that you never tune up. It's like a vehicle that you never check the tire pressure. So a landscape requires a really super important supporting cast member. Are you ready for what it is? It is the paramount supporting cast member to any vibrant, healthy, and producing landscape. It's you. You are you are the tip of the spear supporting cast member in a successful landscape. Plants don't feed themselves as a rule in an ornamental world. Grass doesn't mow itself. Trees, fruit trees, berries, etc. don't prune themselves. They can't water themselves except from the heavens. So the most important supporting cast member is the self-reliant homeowner that has this property. And the way I did it and the way I taught people how to do it is have a schedule. Have a schedule right here on your phone. Have a schedule in your shed on a whiteboard or on even a clipboard, and you had it scheduled out for each year, what things needed to be done. And once you have something written down, it not only solidifies it up here, but it solidifies it here, it solidifies it here, and you make the time to do what is necessary. You can delegate it, you can do it yourself, you can make it a family project, but make sure you get it done. Don't be that house on the block, okay? So the #1 supporting cast member is who? That's right, you and me. Any questions that you have regarding landscape maintenance, landscape care, installation, etc., you always have a professional at your disposal. At this point, it doesn't cost you a darn thing. It's only an email away. And if you need to really raise your educational awareness, there's always the website there with my 2 products. The ebook, Landscaping Simplified, and the digital course. If you really want to become good at what you do, HOMESCAPE 1.0 is ready and willing to help you. Hey guys, what do you think about the supporting cast? The ones that are behind the scenes. You know, when you think about the Academy Awards every February or March, and you have all those winners of that little golden Oscar, you know something? That doesn't mean crap. It doesn't mean crap to the actor, the actress, the movie, the director, the screenplay, the music, all the accolades that those movies get. It doesn't mean crap if they didn't have a fantastic supporting cast behind the scenes, behind the camera, and behind the curtain. So I'll leave you with that. Hey, I appreciate you sticking with me all the way to the end. I'm Matt, you can call me Coach. I'll catch you next Friday. You guys take care. I hope it's not too hot, too quick where you're at. I'm gonna go back into the air conditioning and start researching next week's product for you. Take care.